Yeah, I'll like be talking to my cat at night being like, am I real? Are you real, Pepper? Is this food I'm giving you right now real? And then Pepper looks at me and he goes, no.
Ghouls next door with Gabe and Kat, talking about facts and films and feelings and spooky stuff. Okay, don't get married 'cause they'll eat your kids, including
Hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Gabe. And we're the Ghouls next door. Talking about spooky stuff.
As we do.
And fun stuff. This month is super fun and also traumatizing and sad. We were like, let's do anime. It'll be fun. It'll be a break from doing our For the Culture series where we were just so emotional about how awful humans are. Let's escape into, the animated worlds. And then we were like, oh, this is also awful. This is also painful inside.
Awful but good. I mean, that's what horror is ultimately, is that it's real sad, but also fun.
Yes.
Because we like to be scared in safe spaces, especially animated. I mean, I still have so much empathy for animated characters, but it takes us another step back from reality when you're like, oh, this is like virtual. Or like animated people, where it's like, okay, this isn't like a human that I'm looking at exactly. But it's been cool. It's been cool.
Yeah. And, we are, trying to get joined by friends to talk about specific things because, we have some experts that we appreciate who come in to talk about what they're passionate about. And today we're going to be talking about Perfect Blue, which is arguably like one of the only like horror anime like films, especially of that time, like to be, argued as blatant horror, honestly, because it's pretty horrific. And we were like, well, we have to get like an anime expert in here. So we have invited Dory.
Hi.
From Beyond the Bot.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be talking about this movie.
Yes, and we're super excited to have you. For our listeners who might not know, one, you guys are missing out if you don't. Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Dory, or I like to be called Lovely Dory on the internet. I am an anime girl host on the YouTube channel Beyond the Bot. We used to be a channel called Get in the Robot. We were with Frederator, but unfortunately that had to end this year due to a few different reasons. But then we just decided to go completely independent because we decided we weren't done talking about anime and culture yet. So we're very excited. We're still growing our channel. We have a Patreon and a podcast, some social content, and our content really focuses on like anime and culture and sort of just being this accepting safe space where everybody, no matter where you came from, can just enjoy how wonderful anime is with us.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really enjoy about the bot channels, especially like given like our show, like we very much talk about like horror and we appreciate it, but we're talking about like the culture around it and the influences, and that's what you all do. Like you really dive in. It's not just like, oh, we love anime and we're just gonna geek out about it. It's like, no, you're actually gonna learn something. Like you all put so much work into it, and I'm always like, I had no idea. Like that's so cool that or like learning about anime that I hadn't even thought of or like was told about, and then being like, I gotta go check that out now.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It always makes me happy when people tell us that like they love the channel and that we're doing so much for the community. Like, because every host and even all the people on our crew too, we all come from very diverse backgrounds. That's not really like what you traditionally see in most like anime channels or places that cover anime. So we want to show like, hey, you know, we're just like you. We love anime just like everybody else. So you deserve a voice here in this community too, no matter where you came from. So yeah, I'm really happy that that's like resonating with people.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. You know, it's nice to kind of see like yourself reflected too. Like, you know, there are times where I'm just like, that's a thought I have. Like, that's so nice that someone else also says it. Like, it's like, I feel seen.
Oh, yay. Yeah, there's nothing better than like, especially when girls like come up to me or Crystal and be like, wow, it's so amazing seeing like women covering anime and having different opinions on it, both controversial, kind, you name it.
Yeah.
Sorry if I sound nervous, by the way. I'm always usually pretty nervous in the beginning of recordings, but...
No, it's okay. Yes. Feel free. I know it's like, it's whenever we do like live shows or even just like having, you know, guests like you, where we're just like, how do we separate fangirl from professional podcast host?
At the end of the day, I'm just a big geek and I just want to fangirl over anime and horror and all things messed up and gory and wonderful.
Yay. You're in the right place. We asked the right person.
Happy to be an honorary ghoul.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We wanted to talk to you about like what it is that you love about anime. You also had like your, you know, Dory's campfire stories that we appreciated, and you definitely are a fan of horror and anime, and then horror anime. So just kind of like tell us a bit about what attracts you to anime and what are your favorite kinds.
Oh man, what attracts me to anime is just really the sheer number of weird and bizarre stories that they tell that you just don't see anywhere else. Like, when I discovered, my favorite anime is one called Puella Magi Madoka Magica. I just talked about it on our channel, actually, and I just loved it because, like, when I first discovered it at maybe, like, 14 or 15, I was just like, I've never seen anything like this before. This is so unique. It tells these fresh stories about people that... I'm trying to think of like the right words for it. But it gives you so many unique perspectives. And it's not afraid to like go certain areas that like, I guess more Western media is kind of afraid to reach.
Okay.
Sort of. Like, it's like using Madoka as an example again, even though all the main characters are these very young girls, it's still not afraid to kind of put them through the ringer and talk about their trauma in a very honest way. Mm-hmm. That doesn't really glorify it or sugarcoat it. And I don't know, that just really speaks to me.
Yeah, that's something really cool to definitely appreciate.
Yeah.
Especially like censoring, or especially with women in any type of media. Like it's rare that we're ever allowed to just like feel and like be allowed to be sad or upset. It's like you gotta get over
people.
It. Yeah.
Yeah,
be full humans.
Yeah, be full humans. That's what I love about it. And also, you can find an anime for just about any mood or feeling. Like, if you just want to watch something sweet and lighthearted, you could watch something like Yuru Camp. Or if you want to watch something that's a little deeper, you could watch Cowboy Bebop or Madoka. And there's an anime for every age range, for every type of person. And that's just why I love it so much. It's just always spoke to me. And the art style just speaks to me, of course, as you can clearly see, makeup, hair, everything. I love the aesthetic, too. So it's okay to like pretty things as well.
Yeah. It's definitely fun.
Yeah. And as for horror, I guess, with anime and horror, it's kind of complicated. Because there are anime horror out there, but they are a bit difficult to find. Because, like, when you're looking at, like, a cute anime girl whose eyes take up half of her face, it's hard to be like, yes, this is going to scare me. But then when you look at something like Perfect Blue, that's just done so well, and it shows that, like, even though this is anime, these people still look like real humans. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that aspect, and, of course, also just the really psychological aspects of Perfect Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to find anime and horror, but they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize if it sounds like I'm rambling.
No, you're great.
That's why we're asking these questions. We want to hear. You pitched Perfect Blue, which is funny because so we like schedule out pretty far in advance, and I had just like, I was like, whatever section it's going to be in, like, because before we decided to settle on having anime be one of our series for the whole month, we had one where we were going to talk about like how women are portrayed in horror and kind of talking about like kind of a fighting back on that representation. And so it was like just hovering in our little list, and I was just like, Dory, Perfect Blue, gonna unpack. And then we just kind of threw it out at you, and you said Perfect Blue. I was like, oh my god, it's like she's in my head.
That is the first thing that will always come to mind when somebody says the words anime and horror together. I'm like, Perfect Blue, please, let's talk about it.
Yes.
Yes.
So I can attest that did happen.
I was like, don't pitch it. Just like let her choose. And then it was like, this is just meant to be. But is that something that comes into your mind initially, and why you're so pumped to talk about it?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Well, Perfect Blue is a movie that speaks upon all of my deepest personal fears. As a woman, as a content creator, and just as a person, like, I'm terrified of being stalked. I'm terrified of being betrayed by somebody that's close to me. And I'm terrified of losing my goddamn mind. I mean, I feel like every day, sometimes I feel like I'm losing my mind a little. And also, now more than ever, this movie terrifies me. Not just because of its critique on idol culture, but because of with the invention of, like, social media and the internet celebrity. Now everybody has the potential to be in Mima's place. And that scares me, just as somebody now who I consider myself a pretty private person. So I like, back when I used to stream a lot, I would tell people watching, like, oh, when you meet me, I'm actually pretty different than how I present myself on bot and robot. Like, I may seem very bubbly and like out there on the channel, but I'm actually pretty shy. And the idea of like somebody knowing that much detail about my life, like with Mima, that just shakes me to my core. And this was the third time I've seen this movie, and it scared me now more than it ever has any other time I've seen it.
Yeah, definitely. When we were like, talking and kind of developing our script to pick out the points that we wanted to dive in, we found a lot of similarities with some of the content that we've covered before, specifically about social media. Like, we talked about the horrors of social media and reality TV, where we were like, there's just kind of blend and confusion between like your virtual self and the person that you're putting out on the internet and that you're trying to convince people you are, versus like who you really are, and like the safety and being who you are, and alone.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I guess it's like an example of that. Like, this is not horror, but I love the show RuPaul's Drag Race, and it always breaks my heart when I see a queen getting so much hate online because they said one comment that was a little bit like, that's a little like rude. Yeah, or they say something on the show that's a little rude, a little shady. Like, they don't deserve to get death threats.
No.
Yeah.
And to fear for your life every day just because you said something on a reality television show, like, it's terrifying.
Yeah. And I think, like, we see in the film that there's this further step into the invasion of privacy with social media and the internet. So, like, I totally get what you're saying, where, like, it's scarier now than it might have been if you watched it a few years ago, because one, we're all inside.
Yeah. We're all
always
trapped.
kind of online. No one's mental state is like okay. So people who would otherwise kind of be chilling are facing overwhelming amounts of stress and might be more inclined to obsess over something online or kind of get like overwhelmed by an online presence. So I feel like as like creators, there's more pressure even because so many more people are slowed down and watching.
Yeah.
It hits different. It definitely hits different.
So much different. Like, I don't think Satoshi Kon realized when he made this movie just how relevant it was going to be, like, 25 years later.
Yeah.
Like, even more relevant than it may have been when he first created it.
Yeah. Well, even just thinking, like, and we'll give the synopsis of what the film is. But there is like the fact that she has the computer. It's the old like Macintosh, and it's like she doesn't know how to use it because this is the first time we really have these that are accessible. She's like, what is Mima's room? What are you talking about? What is virtual like person, you know? And like that was so interesting to see because it was so new to her.
Yeah,
and
she even found it funny at first.
Yeah, like, oh, this is a cool little thing. Like, how, oh, you like click this, I have to learn all these terms. Like, what am I doing? And
it's funny till you see that they saw her groceries, and I was like, why
The
did
whole
they
like,
know?
oh, I left the train left foot first. Like,
yeah, yes.
No.
And,
oh my gosh.
Kat, will you give us the synopsis of
I
what
will.
Perfect Blue is?
Perfect Blue, 1997. A pop singer gives up her career to become an actress, but she slowly goes insane when she starts being stalked by an obsessed fan and what seems to be the ghost of her past.
That's
Creator. Yes, thank you. He just did it.
Who did Paprika, which we covered in our Dreams episode, and we were like, it was such a I feel like that episode was very meta for us because we were both sick, so we were both like on like cough syrup, like loopy,
oh, you must have
and
been
then we
having the most
watched
wild Robitussin dreams.
yeah, we were like, what is happening? That's morphing, and what are we? And so that episode, we were just like, I know something was going on. Like, I know I was feeling
What
something.
is reality?
Yeah.
Is the real question.
Like, looking into this, like, that this was his, like, debut film, because he had, like, a manga, and he had other things that he was working on, but this was his first film. And that it was originally designed to be live action, and then because of, well, I think it was an earthquake, the budget was cut, and so then they decided to make it
Oh,
an
wow.
OVA.
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, which is like, yeah. It's like,
I'm
that's
happy
why I was
they
like,
went animated. I'm all for animation over live action.
Yeah, and I think like with it, it definitely seems like it inspires a lot of anime that's come after it, and also like inspired him to create some really amazing work. And so I'm really like happy that that's what happened, and because I think we can really fully get it. And that's not to say that live action hasn't tried to replicate this, like just thinking of Black Swan, which is
I'm so happy you mentioned that. That was something I wanted to talk about.
yeah. Well, he now I'm totally blanking on the director's name.
Darren Aronofsky?
Yes, there we go. Does own the rights to it, so because he replicated it.
Requiem for a Dream?
Yes, Requiem for the Dream. So when when Mima's in the bathtub and she does the scream, it's shot for shot, and he wanted to replicate that in Requiem for a Dream, but he is adamant that Black Swan is his own creation, not made up. And
that was a lie.
yes, absolutely. Because I mean, throughout you can see, and even there's like shots that are honestly like it's really hard to argue. And how often do we like see American media steal
From anime?
From anime
All the time. All the time. The amount of times American films have used that motorcycle shot from Akira and just no credit. A tale as old as time.
Yeah, think about Inception. Think about Lion King.
Yeah.
Think about like, what are you doing? Like so often. Or what was Hunger Games is very clearly inspired by Battle Royale, but would not be explicitly stated. So often that is. But throughout, I was definitely like, this is Black Swan. This is you just put Natalie Portman into Mima's shoes. Yeah. So many of the reflections and all of that, the colors and everything that's super amazing and unique about this.
Yeah, and it drives me crazy that like those movies were so critically acclaimed and like well loved by like American audiences, and just none of them know about Perfect Blue. Like they don't have a clue, because I didn't know about Perfect Blue until like a few years after I saw that movie. I learned about it through a YouTube video by the YouTuber Super Eye Patch Wolf when he made a video about why Perfect Blue is terrifying, and I'm like, oh my god! And then I watched the movie, and it struck even more of a chord with me than any of Aronofsky's movies did.
Yeah.
Not to sound too harsh.
No.
No.
Feel free.
Or pretentious film student.
No, that's what we love that. We're always right in that. Yeah, I saw the same video and was very appreciative because I was like, yes, those are all the things that I feel about it and watching it. It is based on a book called Perfect Blue, Complete Metamorphosis, but totally like is transformed by Satoshi's vision into this specifically. Like how he is portraying the toxicity of idol culture is what really struck me. And I was like, I said to Kat when I was working on the script, I was like, the irony is not lost on me that I am currently listening to like K-pop only while I'm like jamming out to like my K-pop idols, surrounded by K-pop memorabilia that Kat got me for Christmas.
Aww.
And I'm like typing up this like, idol culture is so toxic and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and I'm contributing to it.
I mean, like, you can have an appreciation for something while still being able to critique it. So, like, I mean, I love the Beatles, but I can still recognize John Lennon was a really horrible person.
Yes.
Like, yeah. So I think there is room for appreciation and critique. So, yes. But yeah, the whole critique on idol culture, just like how disposable these girls are, how they don't make a lot of money. Because, like, that was something that was very surprising when I first saw the movie, was after this opening sequence with Cham, like, right after Mima goes to an apartment that's even tinier than mine. Like, she just returns home to this mess, and it just shows, like, all right, well, these idols, like, they get so much care and attention, but, like, no appreciation, I guess, or no compensation for their hard work and sacrifice. And then when you look at somebody like Mima, you just realize like how disposable all these poor girls are.
Yeah. And how they kind of get like, as you see like later in the film, like exploited for like, and just like commodified for their being. I guess, like they don't really get to be people. They have to
they're not
like
seen
put
as
on.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just seen as these objects, these products, figures that can be sold.
And they're owned by their fans. I think there's so much that's, and specifically, you know, talking about idol culture, but we have that too with just thinking about any of our Disney stars who've gone through that transformation from being the Disney idol who's like really young and pure and just precious to having to have that like super like sexualized version of themselves in order to break away from it. Just thinking like Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, who ended up having a mental breakdown, Miley Cyrus, like any number of them who started very young and then had to break away from like because they're adults now. Or like think about even just Zendaya, who's getting so much criticism for Malcolm and Marie because she's 20 something, but people still see her as like 14. And so they're like, what's she doing with this grown man? And that's to say their age difference is a bit much, but she is an adult and like she should be able to portray herself as an adult. She did Euphoria. It's done. She's not in high school.
Yeah.
You know? But like that changed. But I think also what is really terrifying of it is like that they do bring these idols on when they're very young. They're in like high school, sometimes middle school. I think one of the members of BTS was in high school all throughout most of his career and just like graduated like as one of them, and just think about like the youth that he lost out on because he was an idol. And like all of the pressure that's put onto them, like they have to work so hard, and there's so many instances of idols like breaking down. There's really sad like suicides that occur in that culture because of the pressure and the expectations of people. Like I ended up on like a fan site at one point and saw that all the members of Blackpink are under 100 pounds and they're all grown women, all under 100. Like they're like 99, 97. I was like, that's horrific to think about. Like, and they have to be, right? Like they have to do that.
I've seen videos about what their diets are and that they're basically only allowed to eat like apples and sweet potatoes and like that's it. Like, they can't have sugar or junk food, or if they do, then they'll have to, like, just go on a crazy diet for, like, a month if they have, like, one potato chip. And that's just no way to live.
Yeah.
And then what really upsets me the most, is like by the time they reach Mima's age, 21, which is still really young, they get treated like they're washed up and old, and it's just so sad to see. And now you can even see that with TikTok and YouTube culture is all these really young influencers, and then once they reach like around the age of like what me and my bot hosts are, they're considered like old people and out of touch. And it's really unfair, and it can make you feel so disillusioned. Like even I'm always struggling being like, am I old now? Like, is my youth fleeting? And and it's not. It's just I don't know. It's the industry values like extreme youth.
Yeah. Well, I think it could translate to the fact that they want people who are easily exploitable and people who are easily manipulated, and that
vulnerable
age group,
people,
especially are more likely to fall into that category because either they're not having good representation for themselves, like parents or managers, or they just don't have enough life knowledge to really have a strong footing in what they feel is right and wrong. I feel like scientifically, we don't actually establish like a firm. Our brains don't fully mature till like we're 28, right?
Yeah, 25, 28, I think so. Yeah.
So like they're not full, like they don't know, and they're being exploited and manipulated, and anyone who's older and maybe would ask questions is kind of like pushed out.
Anybody who tries to help them is pushed out of the circle. Yeah, and it's just so cruel. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's like they, by taking them at such a young age too, it's like that's when you're kind of discovering yourself and what you could be, like what you like, what you don't like, what your style is and who you are. And they take them then and then morph what they are.
And turn it into a brand.
And like it's like you're just telling them like you are this. It's like the Spice Girls movie or Cheetah Girls where they're like, you're this one.
I have some ideas, and so does my marketing team. Give a listen.
Our research shows your demographic responds to the animal theme and your bouncy, up-tempo, pop urban sensibility.
Kids love endangered species. Kids want to party. Kids want a band like
Global Get Down.
Galleria stays a cheetah now and forever. Dorinda is a sweet panda, a baby seal for Aqua, of course. Chanel is a snow leopard from the frigid north.
Our engineering department wants to create whole new identities.
You know, and it's like, I don't like the color blue. Why do I always have to wear blue? Or what have you. But it is like, we're going to make you into what the audience wants because you belong to them. And so there's like this purity aspect that also comes with the fact that they're so young and the fact they can't date or have any kinds of relationships. And if they do, it's really traumatic.
Yeah, it makes them lose that attainability.
And they have to be like just sweet and nice and like you can't have a bad day. And it makes me think of I'm so sad that I'm forgetting her name, but the one girl was on Terrace House, who was the reality show. She was a wrestler, I believe, and she had a moment where she was angry because her costume was messed up, I believe, and she was angry on the show, and then she was harassed into the point where she ended up committing suicide because of it. Like that's how, like, the audience was like, you belong to us, you stepped out of line, so we're gonna ridicule you for it. It's traumatizing.
Yeah. Well, like there's this expectation that they have to be perfect. That's, I guess, like Perfect Blue kind of makes sense in that way. But that like they cannot be vulnerable or have very human moments. Or I guess in like Mima's case, it's like she cannot, as she starts to like do more, I guess, like as we said with the Disney culture where you like turn to more sexualized and more like mature media, that like she is like her fans are freaking out and basically like, you cannot be showing yourself like this. You cannot be like showing yourself as like a sexual being, as like an adult. But I mean, I feel like she's still very young to be being put in those positions. But I guess like it's very cringe. I don't know.
Yeah, because
I've
she
lost my
still
train of thought.
she still doesn't have like her own agency, because on one end she does have the fans telling her like, no, you're a pop idol, you can't become this risque actress, and then the other hand she has her management team, her agent, and all those people forcing all of this sexual stuff on her. And sure, she agrees to it, but like she knows in her heart that's not what she wants, but she just wants to further her career. And she thinks, well, this is what everybody's telling me, so this is what I have to do. And then that ends up making her lose sight of who she is. I mean, amongst other traumatic things that happened to her. But yeah, so it's like your fans and a whole team around you can just make you forget who you are.
Yeah.
And it's really scary, the idea of like looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself, because like you are what you know best in your life. And if you don't know you, then what do you have? Who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like that they are so convinced, like the people around her are so convinced that they know who she is and have like the audacity to tell her, like just thinking of like the fan who's just like, this isn't, you know, Mima's the pure K-pop idol, or not K-pop, J-pop idol, or like the manager Rumi even, who is very compassionate and caring, but also is like, no, you have to be this idol, like you have to be the singer. And Mima remarks several times that it's very suffocating, and although she went to the, you know, city to do this and to pursue her singing career, it's like it's too much, and she's not getting any money. She lives in her little tiny normal person apartment. She's just that, and she, you know, her audience was rather small, full of all men, also grown men, which is like what people forget that, and like I think it's just so like just the audacity for them to be like, no, this is who you are. And her having to try to figure out, like, is it, like, who?
Yeah, and it makes it all the more heartbreaking in those, when you see those beginning scenes of her buying her groceries, doing normal things. Because I remember in that Super Eye Patch Wolf video, one interesting thing he said was like, this is you learning who Mima is, who she actually is. And I like seeing those little mundane things, like her getting the fancy milk, or her being on the train with everybody else, because it humanizes her, and it shows like, I feel like one thing that a lot of male directors struggle with, especially, is like making their main female character seem more like a person than a concept. But I feel like Mima is somebody who actually felt like a person. And then watching her lose that personhood as like the movie goes on is just so tragic and heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah, you can definitely really feel sympathy for her in this kind of, even just like, we don't spend a lot of time with her beforehand, but we're immediately like, I get it. I know who she is.
She's just a normal girl.
Yeah. And there's what I really, really appreciate about this is a lot of the imagery and the way that shots are framed. Like the one shot where she's on stage and there's like the hands and she's in it.
He's holding her like she's an anime figure.
Yeah. Like he's in it. Or just like all of the reflections. Like there's every single way you look, there's a reflection of some kind happening, because there is this kind of like mix of like, what is real, who are we, how do we perceive ourselves, how do other people perceive us. There's always like, we're always three different people.
Yeah, I thought that was the most scary thing about the movie, was that whole third act, when it just fantasy and reality just blending together, and each scene you're just thinking like, is this real, or is this something she's making up? Is this a part of Double Bind? What is happening here? And like the movie, just, my favorite type of horror is just the horror that really messes with your head. And this movie is the definition of messing with your head, making you question everything. Because it really makes you feel like you are Mima.
Yeah, you're definitely like we were spiraling out towards the end, just like texting each other like, wait, what's this? It's like, wait, so it's the film? No, it's not the film. But wait, did she really murder him? Is he really dead? Is she dead? What is happening? And just like it's not lost that the double bind is intentional. And I feel like right out the gate, like there was never a time where I felt, besides the scenes where she is going like just shopping and kind of doing normal mundane things at first, where I wasn't like, they didn't have that seamless like transition between like what's happening like on the stage versus what's happening here. And now we're back in the room and then we're on this place. And like, it just always moving. And it's almost like a stream of consciousness that was like really fun to follow. And as it like was picking up, and then also like the fact that her words were the same words as the character and her situation's the same, and then you also have on top of that like who's really killing people out here, and they're very much clearly trying to twist
where does the stalker play into all of this?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was interesting too the way I feel like Gaby put this in the notes, I don't remember exactly, but that they were taking their eyes, because everyone's like taking her in with their, like she's being constantly watched. So the people being murdered are losing their ability to like
to see her.
Always see her. And I thought that was really interesting and probably like telling to what he was trying to express.
Yeah, stabbed him right in the eyes. And with like a screwdriver, which is such like that's so hard to do.
It's a big
You
ouch.
have to have a lot of power.
Oh yeah, the part where she breaks the window or she breaks the door glass with the screwdriver, I'm like, that must have taken a lot of adrenaline.
Yeah, like you have to. I like as that like the scene with the pizza delivery person for the photographer. Like that scene, I was just like, this is really savage. Like I watch a lot of true crime and listen to a lot of true crime, so I'm always just like, I know that is not a practical weapon, and in order to do that and with that like that many times, like there really has to be like an intense hate and very like it seems
crime of passion.
Yes, exactly. Like it seems like it'd be random or what have you, but clearly someone is like caring a lot about what's happening. I would say towards the end, while things like are kind of being revealed, so I guess we can be like, spoiler alert from 1997.
Spoilers. If you have not seen this movie, click away right now because the ending, oh boy.
So good.
This is Mima's last performance with Cham.
Who desired to become an actress.
I really hope that I can entertain you just the same as an actress.
But sometimes aspirations can be deadly.
I'm always watching Mima's room.
In the world of make-believe.
Excuse me, who are you?
Friends, Satoshi Kon's animated psychological thriller. Perfect.
So good. Yeah, and it was like I remember as it was unfolding, because I also love thrillers that make me like quite, I'm like, what, wait, but what about this? And like connecting the
Who is
dots.
it?
Yeah. When like Rumi says, we're gonna go to Mima's room. And I was just like, hold up. I was like, hold up. Why did you say
suspicious.
that?
Yeah.
Why do you say Mima's room? Not her room. What are we doing here? And like things were spiraling out. But seeing that relationship of Rumi and Mima made me think of Selena Quintanilla, which is what I'm wearing if you're watching our YouTube video.
Oh.
Yeah. So she was sadly murdered by her fan club manager, Yolanda, when the family accused her of stealing funds. Like she embezzled about $30,000 from the membership dues. And like, if you're watching like the film, there's now also this show, but the film with Jennifer Lopez, like Yolanda even kind of looks like Rumi as like a Hispanic version of her. And so like I was watching, I was like, this is some Yolanda stuff going on. I was like, I am stressed out. Cause like, like when you see the relationship of Yolanda and Selena, it was like, you know, compassion and like she cared and they're like family. And then to think like how obsessed or like connected you can be that you can end up shooting someone like that. And she even like in a report when they were like, they cornered her, she like is crying and says like I killed my best friend. And it's like she's not your best friend, she was like, you're just the fan club manager. But that's how like blurred and like confused her reality was with her relationship with Selena, who was also very young. She's about the same age as Mima in this when she was murdered. And so it's just like, what are you doing? Or I even mentioned the and I found in an article as well on Anime Feminist, there's an article called The Fractured and Famous Celebrity Culture in Control and Perfect Blue by Priya Sridhar. And they mentioned Christine Grimmie.
That happened recently.
The singer from The Voice who was murdered in 2016 by a fan. And apparently, like according to this article, it was that he wanted to date her but couldn't accept the reality that chances were low because he didn't know her beyond the singing. And like that's so scary to think.
Parasocial relationships are so scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, because I think bringing like Bot into an example, like we do love our fans so much, but at the same time, there is a part of me that gets a little scared sometimes if I get like a message, because I'm just like, what if I'm not what they expected? What if I disappoint them? And I mean, and I don't expect any of our fans to go to any extremes like that. But I mean, I'm just a paranoid person, and I'm just afraid of opening up to others, especially like people that I just don't know who only know me through a screen.
Yeah.
That's
scary.
We found in when we did our sex workers episode, talking about like how there's the like your sex worker persona, like if you're like a dom or if you're like, you know, a cam girl or something, like there's even that, like to some degree people think because they're seeing these like intimate moments that they know you, and then it's like you wouldn't probably date one of your clients because they don't know who you really are, and that maybe it's not even your thing. You're doing that for them. This is a job. This is an occupation. And I think, and the same thing with this is like, my persona is my occupation. It's my job. And then I go home and I hug my cat.
Same here. No, it's like, because I'm like known as like, oh, you the scary horror host. And people are like, oh, you kind of scare me sometimes. You're freaky. But I'm really just baby who loves my kitties and drinking coffee and watching cute anime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such like a thing with like personas is that people think that they like that it's not like, I guess for example, like I'm a very introverted person. If we didn't do Ghouls, I would not talk to other humans. I would not leave my house.
Same here.
I would just be like, all right, cool. Like this is the one time where I'm like, I'm gonna talk and I'm gonna be hype about stuff.
You are speaking my language.
Exactly. So it's just like, but if someone met me in person, it's like, I'm not gonna say hi to people. Like even like, I'm like, we shouldn't get too famous because I don't know what I would do. Like, I feel like I would be a very bad famous person because I'd be like,
oh, I'd be a terrible famous person. I would not leave my apartment.
Keep 6 feet from me, pandemic or not. Like, I don't wish to talk to anybody in public. So, like, I just feel like there's, like, this idea of, like, the persona that people, like, really feel like they know people. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, that's literally just, like, a thing that we put on to be on the internet, like, you know, to be a person that I guess more people would be like, all right, cool, we're gonna give them money, maybe, I don't know. But like even without that, it's just like there's this idea that people like feel they're owed something, I think, in like this like fandom culture where it's like you feel like through giving money and watching things that like you own that identity, and it's like very cringe. I feel like it's kind of a product of capitalism, but I don't know for sure.
Oh no, it's definitely. It's definitely.
Yeah.
Where it's like we should just be able to be, man.
Yeah, we should just be able to make what we want and not have to worry about like what anybody else thinks. But like, unfortunately, with YouTube, there's view counts, and you do have to make money at the end of the day. So you kind of have to find that compromise between like, well, what's something I like and what's something that I know the audience is gonna like. How can I marry these? But sometimes that's hard when you just want to make a video about a niche ass anime that nobody's seen.
Like you said, like watching it, it felt very, very real. As like we're not super famous by any means. Like we have a few fans, and even still, like we have like some fans who will like retweet us like every time, or like will like it every time, and I'm just like, thank you, but I'm also like, but who are you? Why do you?
No, it's the same with us too, because I like to say that we kind of have like a cult following, and we usually get like the same like 5 or so people to always retweet us, and it's very flattering. But sometimes I'm like, oh, do we deserve this? Do I deserve this? Who are you? Who are you to like have so much interest in what we do and what I do?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the thrilling aspect of it really felt like too real, being that it's so relevant right now.
Yeah.
But it's such a trip. It was such a trip the whole time. I really enjoyed, and it was something I wanted to watch for a long time, and has always been on my list. So whenever I get an opportunity, I'm like, yes, write it in there.
I probably should have warned you guys that there were a few triggering scenes in there. So for that, I apologize. Yeah, I don't know if we wanted to talk about those as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we should. Yeah, I knew there was just from like kind of poking around, but it's still like, even with like warnings, like having content warnings, like you still aren't always fully prepared for seeing things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, like I've written an article about how like rape revenge films are tired in horror. Like we are often just like, there's more to women than just being the product of something so disgusting. Like we can have other motivations for things. Like we can
murder without that happening.
Yeah. We can have other reasons to want revenge.
Yeah, or other reasons to just like lose our like minds. Like,
can't we just have something where it's like, oh, my cat got stolen, revenge time, rather than
I would so murder someone.
My body's been violated.
Yeah, right? Like, why can Keanu Reeves, shoot people because of his dog, but we can't?
Yeah, exactly. Because then we'll just be seen as irrational and over-emotional.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot. I will say that scene definitely is very jarring.
Yeah, this was the first time I cried watching that scene.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting about it, and the reason why I wasn't, like, it was definitely upsetting, and I feel like there really is no reason to have scenes like that in film ever. But with this, it was so intentional that it was being, remarked upon. Like, it was like, we are criticizing this specifically. Mm-hmm. It's still like, there's that line of like, between criticism and just further contributing to the issue. And I feel like it didn't bleed into that so much, because I never felt like it was gratuitous.
It didn't feel voyeuristic. Mm-hmm. Like you feel her pain in every single one of these scenes. You feel like you are in her place rather than somebody watching.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I appreciated cutting the action, like, to remind us that we're in the film, and like having that dialogue with the actor who's doing that to her, and how he's like, I'm sorry, and she's like, no, it's fine, and then immediately having to go back into that, like, it was like, this is fiction, like, that's what we're trying to tell you, but still knowing, like, still emphasizing that it's fiction, still look how traumatizing it is to her and to the people who, like, are so invested in who they imagine she is, like, how it's, really triggering for them and triggering for her, even though she's like being a professional and feels like she has to do it. It's like, I really appreciated that stop in the motion.
Yeah, and then also the fact that, like, even afterwards when she was in the car with her manager, she's just like, oh, lucky me, I get to eat ramen now. And then when it's not until she gets home and looks at her dead fish that she realizes, like, oh my God, what did these people just do to me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think on the fact that there's so many films that just because a lot of the industry is run by men that do feature rape scenes and aren't animated, and are actively like, that even just like acting it out is a traumatizing experience, and that like there are so many films that have these scenes that don't need to have these scenes. I think it's like it seemed like it was calling that out. And early, even like it still happens today, like in Hollywood and other places, that like that's just something that happens all the time. There's a rape scene in so many films that doesn't need to have one, or like shows too much of it. And I think there's like not a lot of attention maybe given to the fact that just acting in those roles is a really traumatizing experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think it was like definitely calling it out, which was cool.
Yeah, I think now, like when you can, if you're a new actor and you can fill out forms, they'll be like, all right, are you willing to like do nudity? Are you willing to do scenes like these? So I'm happy that now there's more of like an option, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, you want to be able to say yes to as many things as possible so you can further your career. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, especially if you're on a lot of these procedural shows like Criminal Minds, like, you're most likely going to have to be in a scene like that. And it's unfair. And you don't see the same thing for men. Not that you want the same thing to happen to men, because like I wouldn't really wish that upon anybody. Yeah, no matter what your gender is, like you don't want to see that happen to someone.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting to have it have her continually try to justify that it was her decision with and backing that up with the very blatant like understanding that it wasn't her decision. Like she is definitely being, pushed. Like she doesn't really, she has the illusion of choice, right? It's just like rock and a hard place. It's like you do this or you're screwed, right? Like you either do this or you're done. And
you don't have to, but just know.
Like, but you do have
but
to.
you kind of do.
Yeah. And just like, I mean, thinking even about just now with how like Harvey Weinstein is being, shown to his true colors, like his entire career, how he's altered the careers of women because of how disgusting he is, and that it took all this time for it to come out.
And the fact that everybody knew too. Yeah. Like this was not a secret.
Yeah.
And just nobody says anything about it until now. People are finally standing up and being like, this is not okay. And if you know something, you should say something.
Yeah. And it's really sad that it took this time. And to have something like Perfect Blue exist in 1997 being like, I am calling out the issues of this like this culture, idol culture, when it was like very heavy. Like that was a culture that was blossoming and robust at the time, for him to just be like, it's messed up, and like nothing to come from it, because we're still in that, like they're still being underpaid, they're still being used, they're still dying honestly because of what's happening, or they're being pursued by stalkers. Like even like our American actors and artists, like again,
and social media influencers too.
Social media, yes. People just think they have a right to you because they see you on the internet. Or TV.
And they fall in love with this idea of you rather than the actual you.
Yeah. And then like how invasive internet is now. Like it's everything. Like we have it on our phones. We have TikTok. We have Instagram. Like it's just so ingrained into our culture that people are always on it. Yeah. That it just kind of, oh, Charlie. It's just like
I've got mine sleeping back here too.
But yeah, it's intense. It's kind of like in everything, which is, I guess, like different even than it was back then, where it's kind of even more pervasive and like in our face.
Well, think how easy it is for doxing to happen, and how like minimal the thing has to be for someone to warrant doxing you. Like, how often, like, remember Gamergate? Like, traumatizing. I was just like, how does that even happen? Like that we're just like, we don't like what this woman had to say about video games, so we're releasing all of her personal information so that we can harass her. Like that was horrific. And that was when I was like just starting out to like, be, any type of creative person on the internet. And it's always like, I have been adamant even about like not talking about video games because I'm more of a casual fan, whereas like that's danger. That's scary. Like as a woman, I can't go unless I am like an adamant, like just like genius, like expert at this thing, I can't go out there because that's scary. Like,
no, I totally get what you mean. When we were on Getting the Robot and I wrote a piece about queer representation in magical girl anime, the whole time I was writing that script, I was terrified because I know what a lot of anime fans are like, and if they see an opinion like, and there was some pretty weird stuff back in old anime dubs. Like they're gonna be like, oh, you SJWs, you're ruining anime, and I'm gonna dox you and make sure everybody harasses you. Like I was so scared, and thankfully that didn't happen. In fact, I got a lot of support. But it's like there's always that possibility, and it's like I'm just a person. Like I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I'm just pointing out something that happened. And like now we can't express these things anymore without worrying about people breaking into our homes.
Mm-hmm. Or using the internet in some way.
Yeah,
like
and yet they call us
turn.
the sensitive ones.
Yes. Yeah, we're the snowflakes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There are definitely times where, I mean, we've even said it like on our show when we cover certain topics, or when people like ask us to come, we're like, you need to do some research on us because we are, I mean, kind of proud SJWs, and we're not going to say the things that you want us to say. We're going to be honest.
We're going to be real.
And sometimes it's scary. We're like, we want you to make sure that you know that, because there are even times in just the horror community that we don't feel comfortable or safe because it can be really toxic there, and people expect us to be a very specific way because women in horror are portrayed a very specific way.
Yeah, but people don't realize I call like horror like a women's genre just because it treats and portrays women just so much differently than really any other genre does. And I think that's another thing that draws me to it. I mean, it doesn't always do it well, but
yeah.
But it is different at least.
Yeah, it definitely has more women in like lead roles than in most genres, unless it's like romantic comedy, like and with power,
melodrama,
like,
yeah.
And because even with romantic comedies, they don't really have power. They're usually just kind of like, I'm quirky and I fall over until this man saves me.
Yeah,
like
horror,
horror,
it's a
it's
manic
like,
pixie dream girl.
like I'm murdering back.
Oh, the amount of times I've been at college parties have been called Ramona Flowers. I would have an apartment much bigger than this one.
And it's always just like, do you understand the irony of you calling me that?
Yeah, I'm like,
Did you not know Scott is the worst?
Yeah.
Like the guy in the movie is the worst.
Also, my name's Dory. Like,
yes, we not. Yeah, absolutely. Like, we are not the magical pixie dream girls that you want.
Yeah, we're nightmare girls.
Yes, nightmare goblins.
Goblins and ghouls.
Exactly. I really love this film for so many reasons, and I there's not a single thing that I felt like was out of place. Like the shots and the imagery were so beautiful. I found like this one channel Anime Every Day that did a whole thing about the use of red in Perfect Blue, where I was like, I didn't even think about it, and then he's like pointing out all the things, and I was just like, that's so true. Like,
all the reds are so saturated and bright, and like in that scene with the pizza man, I remember one thing that I found really striking was while she was stabbing him in the eye, in the background there's that image of Mima, the pop idol, being covered in blood. That was just so symbolic. Yeah,
there's all those little things that like you kind of catch and you're not quite sure why, like especially like the comment of Mima's room, or when she's in the room and the fish were alive. I was like, hold up. Like, what are we doing here?
Were the fish ever dead?
Or were they ever alive? Schrodinger's fish.
Yep.
Yeah, not unless you're looking. Everything kind of blew me away, and I was very appreciative of all the intentionality of it. And like the running scene, like when she's finally like pursuing her. Anytime we see like the Mima idol and she's just like dancing, like it's like how horrific has like frolicking, just skipping through halls ever been in my life. Like I've never been afraid of like I was like
that one scene at the end where Rumi is chasing her, and then you see the fake Mima is like bouncing along whimsically, but then you see in the reflection Rumi is running and she looks like feral,
deranged. Yeah, because like the whole time that's like when she's like going out the window, like I said to Kat, I was like, I wonder what this looks like in real life, because clearly like she's not
Like
then
just
when,
like floating upwards.
And then it was at that part that I realized that one scene where the two other girls in Cham are having their concert, just the two of them, and then they get confused by the Mima. I'm like, was that Rumi breaking
Rumi
on stage? Yeah, was that
Yeah.
supposed to be her? Or was
they are confused?
Yeah, was it that, or was it just supposed to be like a delusion?
Yeah, or even like a hologram. Like there are actual idols that are like holograms or
Miku.
animated.
Yeah,
Oh,
Miku, gorillas, or even VTubers now.
Yeah.
VTubers. Yeah, that's like I saw that too in like the toxic idol cultures, like how like it's transitioned even to like people selling out to look at holograms.
Yeah. I mean, like I've recently gotten a little bit of an unhealthy obsession with anime figures. I've become a little bit of a collector, but like it blows my mind just the sheer amount of figures for the Vocaloid Miku. There's hundreds and hundreds. And I think, like, imagine if she was a real person, or somebody like Mima, like how much this life would affect her. Like, I'm so happy that she's just virtual. So her brain doesn't have to go through that same trauma that all these real life flesh and blood idols have to go through.
Makes me think of Carol and Tuesday.
Oh, I loved Carol and Tuesday.
You know, the because it's all the music is like, you know, manipulated and technical, and then Carol and Tuesday are like, it's me, Taylor Swift, like doing like it, like in the middle of this like electronic concert, they're just like, like who made this Coachella lineup? It doesn't make sense, but I appreciate, you know, this little.
And it was the opposite with Coachella, with Miku being in Coachella with all these other live action people and everybody being like, who is this?
Yeah, why is this person not real?
Who is this mysterious blue-haired girl?
Yeah. Or like, I saw like posts because, you know, Daft Punk has retired. I mean, like, why don't they just give the, you know, the mask to someone?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, why don't they just take two other random white dudes and put the helmets on them? And then Daft Punk doesn't have to die. Nobody knows.
Who's gonna know?
Yeah, you know, like the marshmallow dudes. Like, what's his name? Like, yeah, just you now have you take on the Daft Punk lineage and you fight back and whatever. But they retired it, I guess. That's cool. So, well, yeah, that's pretty much our show. It was so exciting because there's so much to talk about and unpack, and it is so real, like you're saying, Kat, the fact that we're all trapped inside and just like, this is our reality, this is what we're reduced to, so it kind of hits a little too close to home at times, where you're just like, oh, this is my only interaction with people is virtual, so oh no.
Yeah, I'll like be talking to my cat at night being like, am I real? Are you real, Pepper? Is this food I'm giving you right now real?
Can you tell me what my favorite
Matrix?
color is? I don't know.
And then Pepper looks at me and he goes, no.
That would be terrifying.
That's horror for sure.
That would be a movie in and of itself. We should do a short film that's that.
That's good. That's good.
Next week you are talking a talking cat.
Yes, I mean, we could do it for sure. Dory, where can people find you if they want to listen and watch and connect? But in a total cool way, no stalking.
Yes,
oh,
in a totally 6 feet respectful distance way.
Yes.
You can find my personal stuff. My Instagram and Twitter is Lovely Dory. That is LOVELY DORRIE. You can find me on Beyond the Bot. We are on YouTube. We also have a podcast on Spotify called Beyond the Botcast, and we're making some cool Instagram content as well. So yeah, you can find us at all those places.
Nice.
And definitely check out Beyond the Bot, especially if you are enjoying our series of, you know, anime and horror, and arguably anime that isn't horror like Dragon Ball, but we're still ruin it for you.
If you guys want to talk Dragon Ball, you have to get my co-host Yadoye on there.
Yes, yeah. Oh man, we have to bring it back. Yeah, so definitely check that out. We'll, you know, have the links and everything in our show notes as well, so that you can support in the ways that are super helpful, so you can continue to create that awesome
Oh
content.
yes, we have a Patreon as well.
Yes, and
Do
the
it.
link will be
Probably important to
shared.
mention that.
Yeah, because we love your content. We definitely want people to be able to support you and keep that going.
Thank you so
just as
much.
fans. We love to be seen and heard, and you're doing it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on. It was so much fun being a ghoul today and just getting to geek out over some horror.
Yeah.
Because that is what I do on a daily basis. So when I got the email asking to be on, I was just like, yes, please.
Well, anytime you want to geek out about horror, you let us know. And we'll definitely be in touch, for future things. I'm sure we'll have other reasons to collab. Like I said, you're on the list regardless.
Thank you.
Like, we're
Also,
gonna do it.
if you guys are like Satoshi Kon, I highly recommend you watch his series Paranoia Agent, because that is
Okay.
another one that will really get in your head. And it's not quite as like outwardly like scary, but there are scenes that will unsettle you for sure. But it's
Gotcha.
excellent. Yeah. So
Yes.
Paranoia Agent is a must watch.
On the
It
list.
sounds cool.
What's going on there? After I do my recuperating anime, which is just haiku right now, because we've been doing so much
haiku.
emotional
Yeah.
work. I was
Yeah, no,
like,
I'd say watch something lighthearted and fun first to just as a nice little mind palate cleanser.
It's so much more than sports.
Yeah.
I'm like boys connecting and
It's the
loving each other.
camaraderie.
Yeah, it's like I
Yeah.
don't like sports, but I like this. I'm gonna figure it out. A break after Evangelion.
Ugh.
Oh my god.
Young boys being friends. That's what I need. Not being traumatized by their parents. Awesome. Well, people, if you're listening and watching, make sure you like and subscribe for us and Beyond the Bot. And don't get married.
They'll eat your kids.
Yeah. Or they'll become a pop star and then, chaos
Sad.
ensues.
Don't eat your baby.
Don't do it. Awesome. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.